Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Carve Your Own Fucking Path, a podcast made to inspire you to create a life and business on your own terms. You'll hear candid interviews with people who have boldly decided to blaze their own trail, and the occasional solo show with me, your host. I'm Willa McDonough, on-camera coach, storyteller, and remote video producer. 5 years ago, I moved from my home base of San Francisco to the coast of Portugal, taking a big leap into the unknown. Some called it courageous. I called it carving my own fucking path. Today, I live in Lisbon and run a business that elevates your online presence, helping you show up confidently on camera to create videos that showcase your brand and personality so you can get more visibility and attract clients by being yourself. If you're just starting out in business or you've been doing it for a while, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice and hopefully feel inspired by stories from people who have chosen the unconventional and sometimes messy path. And if you've been waiting for a sign to start carving your own fucking path, this is it. I'm so happy you're here. Okay, be honest. How many brilliant ideas have you had that never came to life? If you're like me, and most people, ideas are really fun, but it's the making it a reality that is a whole other ballgame. My next guest is Sarah Muir. She is the force behind Palm and Pine Sunscreen, which is based here in Portugal. She's also a good friend. And I wanted to have her on and to share her story and also give you the truth and some tips behind bringing a product to life from ideation to reality. All right, let's meet Sarah. Welcome to Carve Your Own Fucking Path.
Finally.
Sarah Muir. Finally. We have been talking about this for at least a year or two. So Sarah and I met each other. I was living in a small surf town on the coast of Portugal. And it's a place, it's a melting pot of people. I was curious about you because you had a couple businesses and you're living in this town, a surf town. Your husband surfs. That was the decision, I think on his part. You are from Scotland, but you lived in the UK, and then you were living in Geneva for a while. So as I got to know you, you became one of the most interesting humans I've ever met. And we've since developed an amazing friendship. And I really wanted to have you on because you've been carving your own fucking path for a really long time as an entrepreneur, but also as someone who's lived many different lives in a way. So I wanted to hear your backstory. And I think the journey that you've been on recently with starting your own company, your own brand, which we'll get into, I think it's a story that most people don't hear. Mm-hmm. People see the success at the end. They see the product, the finished product, the beautiful Instagram. They don't know what really has been happening behind the scenes.
It's true.
So I've known you and I've seen it, happen. And I just look at you as a fearless leader in so many ways because you've been doing a lot of this on your own. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of, cojones, I'll say, to do what you've done. And I'm going to stop talking and let you talk now. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Let's dive into your backstory. I always like to start there, and you can choose where you want to start, but I always like to know, what did you think that you were going to be when you grew up? Or what path did you think you were going to take?
Oh, this is a broad, let me think. Well, when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a long distance truck driver or an American football player. Totally random.
Wow.
When I was a kid, but obviously that was very, very young. I have no idea why. I think I just liked the big American trucks. And I remember seeing American football on TV thinking that it was, I don't know. But anyway, in the kind of real aspirations, and I didn't really know actually. Mm-hmm. At school, I wasn't academic at all.
That surprises me.
Yeah, no, I was distracted by all the kind of stuff that distracts a teenage girl, especially growing up in Scotland. And so from the age of 4 years old, I played the piano, and then I later went to learn how to play the violin and the viola. So from a young age, I was kind of destined to go in the music direction of music. And so at the age of 16, I actually got into music school in London. And I had been practicing classical music for years and studying it at school as well. And I got to London to a music school down there, and I was accepted in for singing, music production. And because of my classical background, that kind of helped.
So singing.
Well,
I didn't know this. Okay.
Wow. And so I got in, and because of my classical training, I think that definitely helped. And I remember getting on the train afterwards with my mum and bursting into tears, and her saying, do you know what? If you don't want to go, it's okay. But because it being kind of my destiny throughout school, it was a huge kind of shock to myself almost to realize that. But I didn't see myself living in London. I kind of, at the age of 16, had this kind of foresight to anticipate how difficult the life of a musician could potentially be. So with the classic music, I could have gone down the like sessions musician route, or I could have been a performer. And it just, I don't know, just something happened in that moment where I was like, actually, this is not for me.
Wow. I got the chills when you told that story.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Just being young and thinking about the future like that. And it's so young to even make these decisions.
And I think that's definitely when people talk about like privilege and what kind of background elements have contributed to where you are now. I would say that was the first time that my parents made it okay for me to choose a different path. And maybe that then enabled me to have the kind of, I guess, courage in some respects, but also the imagination to imagine what an alternative path could be. There was no pressure there. And so like I was able to, at the age of 16, begin thinking about, okay, well, what does that look like? And there was a period straight after that where it looked a bit like it wasn't going to go anywhere, actually, because I came back to the small town I was brought up in, and I started working in a laundrette, like cleaning sheets of big hotels. And and it was just a kind of like period of time where I was figuring things out. And then that's when the hairdressing came in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I knew Sarah was a hairdresser, which is so funny when you know someone as this other person or doing something else. So you had a long history doing hair.
Yeah, 15 years.
Wow, that's insane to me.
So random.
It is, but at the same time, it's something that were you naturally into doing people's hair?
No.
Oh.
Not at all. But I think I had the creative element there. My family are quite creative. And I got back after making the decision about music school, and I saw an advert in our local newspaper. And it was for a local hair salon, but the founder of it was an incredibly talented hairstylist. She did work with L'Oreal. She was ex-former Scottish Hairdresser of the Year. And I just thought, why not? I'm creative. You know, at the time, I really enjoyed that kind of customer-facing aspect of work. So I went and interviewed for the position. We got on really well. And then the rest is history. Oh my
God, 15 years.
Yeah.
And then you lived in a small town in France as well. So talk about that, because that decision, were you doing hair there as well?
Yeah. So I think like part of the decision to do hairdressing was, for me, I kind of at that time started to feel like I wanted to travel and I wanted to see different places. And I'd worked in the service industry before. I'd worked in hotels and bars and whatnot, as a waitress, server. But I kind of figured that with hairdressing, people are always going to need hairdressers, and it's really mobile. So I could then go anywhere with it, and everyone needs a haircut at some point. And so if I needed to make money, I could use that. So I did that.
Okay. And identity. I love asking about identity, because what identity did you have back then? Or was it a separate thing as far as what you did for a living? Or did you embody that and that was a bit of who you were?
I think I was definitely a hairdresser, in that I took pride in what I did. I was very involved in it. I really looked after my clients. I established good relationships with my clients, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So I wanted to be the best hairdresser that I could be. But instinctively, there was always something there that kind of said, this is not the end. This is not your ultimate goal in life, because it was something that served me extremely well. It was really creatively interesting, and stimulating in that sense, but it was never the end goal.
So you had a little voice.
Yeah, I
Got it.
always had a, yeah.
What did that voice start telling you that your new direction was?
I think at the time, like I've always been passionate about like business. I've always been drawn to kind of dynamics of business people. And at that time, it wasn't defined as any one thing. I think there was always an adventurous spirit inside of me, but there wasn't a kind of direction to it at that point. And I remember speaking to people. I had some really interesting clients who were really successful in business. And I think they could sense it from me too, that there was more there. So it made some really interesting conversations with my clients. But then I ended up doing ski seasons in my early 20s. And fortunately, the person I worked for in Scotland at the time was a friend. So I could go away and do these like adventures in the winter and then come back and pick up my job again. Okay. So, yeah.
So that's when then you moved to the ski town in France full time.
Yeah, no, actually that was, that came after. I did a couple of ski seasons and then came back and actually went back to school. So I'd kind of lived a hedonistic lifestyle for a few years. And then I was like,
did it ever stop?
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, that's when the next chapter started.
Okay. So you went back to school. I know how that is too, going back later. I was the oldest one in the classroom, but at the same time, I was still in my 20s, but you went back to school for business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did that look like? And what did you think that was going to lead to?
Well, I think it was, so, I mean, obviously the hairdressing gave me the flexibility to travel. Through my family, I discovered Morzine in the French Alps. So learned to snowboard, worked there, did hairdressing for great clients out there. And then it was kind of getting to the stage where like, what now? I was partying a lot. I was doing everything that you should do in your early 20s, in my opinion. But it was like getting to the stage like, okay, too much of a good thing. So I came home. My parents kindly let me move back in with them. And I just, I think it was like on a Tuesday or something, I was just casually like browsing courses at the university in Aberdeen, Robert Gordon's university, and saw a course in management economics. Actually, that's what I started with. Okay. Signed up. And then by the Thursday or something, I'd been accepted. I'm like, oh, I'm going to university now. Okay. So it just, I don't know. It's hard to,
you had not gone to university before?
No.
Okay.
No.
Got it. And then was that what your family and let's just say culture, did you feel any pressure to go down a certain path? Or was there, it sounds like there was a lot of freedom and also your parents were very flexible and promoting you to decide whatever you wanted to do, right? Yeah. I mean, interestingly, my background was, I came fortunately from a family who just let me figure out my own path, which was incredibly, an incredible thing to have. My school, however, was a totally different story. And the town I grew up in, there was a lot of very kind of affluent people. And it was like you had to fill in what was called a UCAS form in the UK, where you fill in your basically application for different universities. And I remember at the time just like being completely disconnected from that, just feeling like this is just not for me. But at the school and the place where I grew up in, it was like you were only successful if you were going to go to the university and study law or, become a doctor or become work in oil and gas industry, which is huge in Aberdeen, the little city. And so my parents didn't put any pressure, but there was definitely schooling pressure that fortunately I managed to sort of ignore. Right. And not be pushed down the wrong path by that. Right. And are your parents entrepreneurs? No. No. Okay. And siblings or anything? No. No. I am. You totally different. The black sheep. Anomaly. Yes. Because I know you as this very badass entrepreneur. So sometimes I'm always surprised like when there's been no influence in a way, but it sounds like you had a lot of clients too that you saw modeling this like potential, lifestyle or something. And then, okay, you go to business school. Did you ever think you would start your own business? Was that a goal? At the time, yes, actually, that's where it kind of started because, the business school I went to was in Aberdeen and they had strong connections with the oil and gas industry there. So BP, all the big companies had internship programs that were highly paid, but obviously not of any interest to me whatsoever. So when it came to the industrial placement that we had to do in third year,
I really struggled with knowing like what was I going to do.
Yeah.
And I actually had an opportunity to go to Burton Snowboards in Burlington, America.
Cool.
One of my clients knew the creative director there at the time. They'd studied at Harvard together.
Wow.
And I had this whole thing set up because it wasn't part of the curriculum
Mm-hmm.
from the university. They didn't know how to police it, basically, or manage
Okay.
it. So I ended up at a local publishing company,
Mm-hmm.
which at the time I couldn't figure out how this like feeds into the bigger picture. I learned everything about print media
Mhm.
and the evolution, the digital transformation from that, and so many different, even just kind of like skill set,
Mhm.
like learning how to like properly use Excel spreadsheets, for example, to do market share analysis. And now when I look back, I talk to you a lot about joining the dots.
Mhm.
At the time, everything seems so fragmented, but from
Okay.
everything I've done in my past, everything has fed into the next thing in some way, you know.
Mhm. Yes. And
During
yeah.
that time, that's when I launched my first solo project.
Okay. Was it the biking
Yeah.
project? Okay. So yeah, Sarah's very active snowboarder and mountain biker, downhill mountain biker. So you organized events for women.
Yeah, encouraging
right?
more women into the sport,
Mhm.
creating like a training arena to then help filter more women mountain bikers into the national races in Scotland and the UK.
So
And
cool.
actually, yeah, it did its job. So
Mhm. So that was your first outward facing
yeah.
project.
Yeah.
So then you graduate with this business degree. What happened next?
So that took me back to Aberdeen for 4 years, but having already lived overseas, I knew that I didn't want to be
Mhm.
back in the UK, in Scotland. So during that time, I had got engaged to my long-term boyfriend, and we decided to move to France together, back to Morsey,
Mm.
where I had spent my early 20s.
Okay.
And during that time, I went back to hairdressing just to help financially bridge the move. And at the same time, then transitioned from hairdressing into consultancy and marketing and strategy that I then went on to do.
I love that. Just, a casual transition. Again, you had the background though. You've done, the schooling and stuff like that. So you're doing hairdressing and then you're starting to consult. Did people think that was a possible disconnect, or did you have any issues with that transition?
So I have to say that the degree that I did, during the time I dropped the economics and then moved on to marketing and then general kind of business management.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that was the most incredible degree ever. It really is my toolbox. And the Robert Gordon's university really kind of promotes learning that can then be actioned in the real world. So I really felt like I already had an incredible toolbox of how to approach it from a financial standpoint, from a processes, operations, everything. Then with the marketing specialism, what I wanted to then do was ensure that I had the most recent and became qualified in digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that, I actually took a 3-month unpaid internship down in Nice.
Cool.
And worked for an SEO and digital marketing company where I got all my Google certifications. So I became Google Analytics and AdWords certified, had hands-on experience with incredible clients in real estate, the yacht industry. And that kind of gave me that confidence, I guess. And then there's additional digital skills that teamed with marketing theory in the business. It enabled me to kind of feel like I was ready to be on my own. So,
okay. Did it feel like this was your calling when you started learning this stuff?
It's funny because yes, because it was the client facing part was natural to me from the hairdressing. So the consultation part actually came to me really naturally because that's one of the key skills of hairdressing. Right. You have to be good at asking the right questions and really kind of getting to know. And the thing with hairdressing, you're creating a product on situ, live on the person. So you have to be very astute at, understanding what people need and want. So calling, it took me a long time to feel confident. And I have to say, even now, I've been doing it for a long time, but I don't think you ever truly feel confident when it comes to digital marketing, for example, because the minute you do, you're falling behind.
Right.
And so I felt like the subject matter was really interesting. And I got the opportunity to, do some really great work. But even now I feel like confidence equals complacency a little bit with this job, it's always moving.
Always. It's so true. Definitely feel like that with video production too. It's always, everyone's creating all their content now and marketing themselves. So I think you have to know how to do it all, but also just keep learning all the time. And so then you're consulting, you're building confidence. Are you ever thinking, okay, maybe I should, start my own thing, a business, or work for someone else?
In the period of consultation work that I did after doing my period in Nice, I then started to feel like I would gain more from working in a team. And it was at that time I got the opportunity to go work in Geneva. And I was brought in as an SEO digital marketing person. But then unbeknownst to me, I'd actually been then shifted into an IT project management role. So English speaking generally in Geneva, but actually it turned out mostly French speaking.
You spoke some French, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's not great. So it was a real baptism by fire. It was my first corporate environment. Geneva is a tough working environment,
Yeah. And how old were you when this happened?
How old was I?
Yeah.
And 33.
Okay.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah. So first corporate, coming from hairdressing. And did people know that about you?
Yeah. And actually that's why I was employed.
Oh, okay.
Which is what was interesting to me. When I interviewed, I kind of almost felt obliged to not obliged, but like I needed to almost like apologize for my seemingly scattered past, career path. But actually they said to me in the interview, this is kind of what made me think it was the right decision at the time. Actually, that's what we find interesting about you, because you bring in a different perspective. So I came in a junior role, and within a year I'd been promoted and given a salary increase to reflect the work I was doing, I guess.
That is so interesting. And I think people listening, and again, our culture, Western culture, is all about where did you go to school? What are the accolades that you have after your name? It's like, it really is this prescribed path, I call it. And the fact that they wanted you because of your difference, that speaks to them, I think, as well. And also for other people that are thinking of completely changing and shifting directions, it's like, don't disregard that.
Yeah. I think there's two things that it's really important to disregard: your age and the conventional path.
Yep.
So my friend John Weaver has recently written a book, kickstarted a book, the Anti-Blueprint Project. And I have to say, it was so cathartic to read it. It was almost like, I don't know, in part, some kind of validation that the anti-blueprint is actually, it's
the blueprint.
It's okay. It's the blueprint. Exactly. Because as much as each moment in time might not make sense, when you look back and, Steve Jobs talks about joining the dots, everything makes sense to just follow what feels right in the time.
Yes.
And remove the age factor, because one of the biggest challenges I've had to overcome is, am I too old to do this? Am I too old to go to university? And then especially for women, it's like we hit 30 and it's like, we need to have a dream career. We need to be married. We need to potentially have children. And
follow the path. Yeah. That's
all of that comes into it. So just forget your age and be where you are now.
So it's never too late.
Never too late.
Never too late.
It's
thank God.
Nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense.
But I have to remind myself a lot, actually, because I mean, we haven't followed the traditional path necessarily. And I think it's hard to sometimes navigate that without thinking about those other voices and where are they from. I mean, unspoken, I guess, but it's there, it's present. And so you're in Geneva, you're living this big girl job, doing this big girl job. And did you ever, in that moment, or did you have moments of like, this is surreal almost?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, it was my first time on like a proper salary, and the Swiss salaries are generous to say the least. So I got myself a ridiculous car. Just like I act, you got
to play the part.
Play the part. And it was, I really, really loved it. It was a great experience. It was really stressful.
Okay.
Because, I went into it, like on a kind of personal fast track. I was there and I wanted to progress quickly. And interestingly, I was around people who were the same age as me or younger, and their approach and attitude to work was completely different to mine because they had already been doing it for a while. They'd maybe reached a point where they were comfortable in their position. They were senior project managers, engagement managers, client managers. But for me, I was kind of like, right, let's go. I haven't got that time to sit back and enjoy the kind of luxury of time. So I think I was, I was pretty driven. And I got the opportunity to work with incredible clients, like luxury watch companies and whatnot. But yeah, the whole thing was surreal. And I knew I kind of always knew it was just a period of time.
Oh, okay. So you still had that voice like, nope, this isn't it. Or this is going to end.
Yeah, I guess.
At some point. Okay.
I guess so. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, what you said about this luxury of time, because you were always working for yourself as a hairdresser. You find your clients, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. So that also is a different mindset completely. And then in this role, you have the job. You don't need to go out there and hustle anymore. But did that ambition and that drive, did it get stronger in that environment? Because you could see like your potential.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the hustle's there. You've either got it or you don't. And it's not right or wrong either way. But I think, even in the job, I could see opportunities, but because I was a project manager and I did some SEO and SEM consultancy as well. I had one client, and for example, I could see so much opportunity, but because that was beyond my role, I wasn't allowed to actually sit down and nurture the client in the way that I knew I could. And I knew I could get this extra business from them, and we could become like a key partner for them. But because of the hierarchy of the company, I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to just sit in my role. And it's the first time I'd ever experienced that. And I think that speaks to the fact that there was obviously just something in there.
Yeah.
You
had to be
I can't just show up to work. I show up to work and I've got to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're a leader. I mean, that's the thing is that was always in you. That was my question, I think, because it is a different personality type altogether, I think. And then you're just like navigating, okay, where are you going to fit in? And then you end up leaving that job. Yeah. You move to Portugal. You're living in a small town in the coast, and we met there. And during that time, when I met you, you had a couple different businesses going on, like e-commerce, right? And a couple different things. So tell us about that. And then what happened next? What was this big idea that came about?
It was kind of the reason I ended up in Portugal. I'll keep it short because it was a fast and furious moment in time that kind of led me to what I thought was going to be the dream position. I was brought in as like head of digital marketing for a new agency. In my opinion, we had I'd wanted to move to a city, so Lisbon, Barcelona were kind of on the cards, and a friend from Geneva said, "I think I've got an incredible opportunity for you." So I flew from Geneva on a Tuesday. By the end of the week, I'd resigned from my Geneva position, and I was set to move over to Lisbon. So I did that job for a few months, and it was actually for two guys who were, they had a number of projects. And so they wanted to create an agency around their projects. And it kind of led me to believe, like, I'm here building someone else's dream. This is like a long story short, but like I'm here building someone else's dream. And I'm kind of done with that. But it was like the most money I'd ever made in the most stunning city in the world, in my opinion.
Right.
And so it was a big decision to leave it. But in short, our visions weren't aligning. And I just kind of had this burning feeling like you're not supposed to build someone else's dreams. And so that's how we ended up in Sarah.
Okay. And I'm seeing a theme now of you being faced with decisions and taking the choice of big, like, money. I'm going way back to like this oil and gas, which was in your town, and not choosing that because that could have been a route to earn money. Yeah. And then you have these other experiences. So what was your driving force, like moving you forward, building your own dream?
Yeah, possibly. Or I think not being capped by anything, not being capped by a salary, not being capped by corporate structure, not being capped by, I think, like, because if I think about what I'm doing now, Palm and Pine Skincare, what I think one of the things I love about it, and amongst the highs and the lows, is the creative freedom. And I think that's probably, if I think about it, and I'm a bit of a lone wolf sometimes, I do like to kind of do things by myself. And
right.
And so I think it matches lifestyle versus creative freedom and kind of having the last say on it, I guess. You know?
Okay. And tell us about the Columbine skincare, that moment in the kitchen.
As you said,
I always love the moments.
I didn't answer your question before. Yes, after Lisbon, I went to Sarah and worked on a couple of projects, e-commerce projects, blah, blah, blah. And so I was kind of looking for that thing, looking for my thing. But in the meantime, kind of spending some time getting my joie de vivre back because I'd been very stressed out before and I'd kind of lost, you know, the non-working aspects of life.
Right.
So here I am in this beautiful town, this beautiful country, just trying to refocus. I'm from Scotland and I have, you know, I live in Portugal now. I don't tan. And so I use a lot of sunscreen. Meanwhile, my husband, I came from a very like natural, organic family. And my husband discovered how nasty some of the ingredients are in sunscreen. So he starts basically, long story short, cooking up sunscreen in the kitchen using zinc oxide, beeswax, etc. He gets really excited about it. He's testing it on me on the beach. And then he decides he's just going to start selling it. So of course, the business mind in me is thinking, we absolutely can't do that because, you know, alarm bells are going off. But then I started benchmarking it and I started looking at what do I use? What am I missing? What can't I find? And there was a glaring opportunity.
I love that. Glaring opportunity.
Glaring opportunity, yeah.
And he was going to sell it, what, to his buddies?
Yeah.
You know?
Ross, where are you?
What was your plan, Ross?
Farmers markets, I guess.
Okay.
You know, I don't know. Like,
okay.
I think it was, you know, his idea, and he could see that there was something that, you know, was missing as well.
Okay.
And then moving to beside the ocean, we became hypersensitive to plastic pollution. Just once you're right there beside the ocean, you start to realize what the issues with it.
Right.
And so we started to kind of put all the pieces together. And yeah.
Okay. So this is going to be difficult to sum up, obviously, in a short time, but you saw an opportunity and then your business mind kicked in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just ran with it. So, because so many people have a lot of ideas, I mean, guilty. And then but rarely people put it into action. What were some of the first steps? So let's say someone is in their idea phase. They have this amazing idea. Then what? Looking back now, you can.
Yeah, I really, one of my regrets is not documenting it more, but like in this moment, when I think about it, it was firstly finding out, is there an actual need for it? Does the need kind of extend beyond me? Looking at what currently exists. And then when we think about like, a lot of the time people don't start with things because they think about risk and they think about it's going to take a lot of money. But you can manage these risks by doing your research. So do your research, understand how much it's going to cost to get started. And if you can quantify that risk in terms of, you know, would losing that be catastrophic to your life? Or is it possible to easily raise that kind of money I'm talking about from a financial standpoint, but before we get to that, it's just understanding, am I actually solving a problem with this product? Is there a problem there? And oftentimes the best businesses come from solving a personal problem. It usually starts with that. What am I missing? What's not working for me in the world? And yeah, there are hundreds, thousands of skincare and sunscreen brands. But I was listening to a book recently and he said all of the wheels have been invented. We can no longer reinvent the wheel. So we just need to take what's there and iterate on it and answer some of these pain points. And really that's, you know, start with, do people need this? Like, does this problem actually exist? And then start to quantify the risk factor.
And did you think about as you're doing this research, were you envisioning this line? Were you thinking, okay, I'm going to take this all the way through?
No, because there's kind of like go, no go points, so many points within the project. So it's like, okay, like what exists out there currently? Let's start buying some of those products and start testing. Does the problem still exist? And it just at each point, and it's like, you just don't know.
Was there a moment where you said to yourself or out loud, I'm going all in. I am 100% in and nothing is going to stop me?
When we launched the crowdfunder.
Okay.
I guess because that's when I became accountable.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's when I became accountable, because before that, it was kind of a research project.
Mm-hmm.
It was a research and planning project with not too much money invested, no people expecting anything from me. But then the minute we decided to crowdfund and then launched that's when it got real.
Yeah, that's when it got real. And again, having been there, along this journey with you, I was always impressed with how you did bring people into your process. And it wasn't yet, you can maybe a lone wolf, but you started to really ask questions and get other people involved in it. And the crowdfunding was clearly a decision to go that route, involve other people, and then move forward, and asking for this sum of money. Mm-hmm. If you didn't get the money, did you have a plan B?
Yes. For me, then it's like, it's an indication that it's a no-go. Because for me, when people talk about, well, how do I know if people are going to want this product or are going to buy into this business idea? Crowdfunding for me is the number one way to do that, because you're asking people to do the hardest thing to get people to do, which is to take out their credit card, put money where their mouth is, make the purchase. And it's what makes it unique as well, is you're asking people to make a purchase on a product that doesn't even exist yet. So if you can convert people at that moment in the business, then you're onto something.
Right.
And during the whole process, you've got people commenting on your Indiegogo Kickstarter, your campaign page, commenting, emailing you, asking questions. And it then starts to either confirm your idea or challenge your idea. And prior to producing the product, you still have time to iterate. So it's actually one of the most powerful market research exercises as well.
Right.
Because during that time, you're also building a database of people. And then I was able to go back into that and ask people their opinions and really involve people, as you said, in the kind of product development process and the marketing process. I mean, it just became a really valuable tool to prove the concept.
And then your digital marketing, a product that doesn't exist, which I found so interesting. A lot of people do this with courses. I don't build the course until it's people have paid for it. And I thought that would freak me out. But you did the exact same thing with your product. So give listeners just a taste of, okay, you manufactured it in this country and like where everything is created. So you're based in Portugal, but everything else is being sourced from all over the place. And some of the kind of roadblocks you came up against. This may take a while.
Yeah, I'm just like, how do I do this in short? Okay, so we launched the crowdfunder in October 2019. And we had a manufacturer set up. Everything was in place. So we had a month of crowdfunding, and then we were supposed to launch. And this was with contingency timing for any kind of issues that came about in the March. And right before we were about to launch, I met someone who is a professional formulator. She casually said, "Can I check the ingredients? Do you want me to just have a look?" She checked the ingredients and she said, "This is not good. There's not enough preservation. There's quality issues, basically." So fortunately, no contract had been signed. So we managed to navigate the situation. But this added a year of delay to the project. So, and I'll never forget the day it happened. And our mutual friend, Dan, saw me. I was white as a ghost in our co-work space. And he just turned to me and said, "You've got this." And I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, at that moment, I didn't think I did. I was like, how am I going to deal with this? I had over 300 orders. It was just me. All of a sudden, my world fell apart. So I just had to, just refocus calmly. And at that time, I brought in a technical advisor to help me avoid that problem again, because you can do your due diligence. And people talk about strategy and planning and everything, but there's always going to be like hurdles that you can't anticipate, and you just have to pivot, as they say.
Right.
I hate that word.
I know.
It's like
a lot of people hate that word.
It was a hardcore pivot.
And you get this news. It's not only you that's like having to deal with that. It's 300 people potentially that have invested, and so, I mean, what is that feeling like when you have all of these people depending.
I actually feel nauseous thinking about it. And it was hard, you know, it was like, I just wanted to run and hide, but then I had to then be rational. I thought to myself, well, you know, every purchase was, you know, we were so grateful for every purchase. Fortunately, we're not a big ticket purchase. So I quantified the kind of the level of disappointment that might be experienced by people in terms of the monetary value that they've invested. So relatively speaking, I'm generalizing here, it was a lower investment than some of the other kind of tech crowdfunded products, for example. So that was step one, thinking about that. And then step two, I just had to go into full communication mode. So basically lean into the problem, communicate the problem, be honest with the problem. And then all of a sudden there was a pandemic. And I have to say that as much as it was a horrific situation for the world, what happened was people were obviously then focused on that. So it gave me the opportunity, I guess, to just get to work on finding a solution whilst the world, you know, got to work on finding a solution and navigating a pandemic. So the kind of timeline was within that time. So, and during that time, I found within 5 weeks, I'd found a new manufacturer, and we got to work on formulating the two products that we have today. Okay.
And hiring, you started hiring people to help you, but you've been the visionary throughout the entire thing for the entire brand. How was that experience, bringing people in and sharing your vision and having them execute it?
Yeah, that's because the thing is, when you become a founder, you are a product developer. You have to be an accountant, a lawyer, a people manager, and it's going to expose your strengths and your weaknesses. And I have to say, the minute I brought, you know, not the minute, but working with people often for me presents the biggest challenges. So my partner Ross is still active in the business, and he's an extremely talented people manager. So what's happening is, as time goes on, I'm finding he kind of comes in with that skill. But there was one person with me from the start, Lois Vero, and she is the woman behind the trees and the logo. She's a friend, an acquaintance, and she was an acquaintance from Morsey, and I knew her from the Alpine, the French town I used to live in, and I knew she was an illustrator. So I looked at her work and thought, this is kind of like the route I want to go down. Because the palm and pine, basically palm tree lifestyle, it's your surfing, your sunshine, your beaches. And then the pine tree is the snowboarding and skiing and the mountain life. So bringing a kind of evergreen aspect to the brand. So anyway, she's been with me from the start. So she's co-navigated the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows of working with a startup patiently, diligently, even through like having her first child, for example. So that is an entirely different example, because she's just been incredible. My right-hand woman, in fact. But then along the way, I've brought in different contractors, worked with different people, and overall, because Palm Pine's built on a contract model in terms of it's very automated, it's it's been mostly okay. It's been mostly okay, but they're having challenges.
Yes,
they're definitely having challenges. Yeah.
And launching, something I've never experienced before, and watching your launch, I was just very impressed again of all of the steps. And how did you know how to do that? Or was that just learning in the process?
I think it's like working back from the moment, and what it looks like. So one of the key, like it's widely cited in the marketing and founder world, you need to build your community before you launch. So as you've seen with our Instagram, we invested heavily in, and Lois designed the grid for us over the past 2 years, I think it was. So we built a following of a few thousand, and then I focused on building an email database. And so it was just to basically have people to talk to, people to launch to, which obviously the crowdfunding helped with, because we almost had that as launch one. So we already had this kind of audience of people. And then after that, it was just all about creating content that would interest people, creating a unique feel, consumable content through the videos that Vasco made for us, our video partner. And just creating that kind of moment of build up. And I think it came quite instinctively because, I was in the process, So.
Yes. And you have an incredible ability to look into the future, I think, and really see the big picture and then be there and do all the details.
And that's the most exhausting part.
Yeah. Is the details along.
Yeah. It's like it's having to take the bird's eye. It's like, for me, I kind of use the analogy of like a drone. Like you're constantly like zooming out to get the big picture. And then in the same respect, I'm dealing with like writing Instagram captions and whatnot. And we're bootstrapped. So people would probably hear that and think, well, get someone to do it. But I've got to constantly prioritize, you know, what do I need the most right now? And if I can do things, I'm still doing it at the moment because it's more financially efficient for us. And it means we don't need to take external investment right now.
Right. And you have had your hand in everything. And I think that's the unique situation too, to have a creative eye and also the the process, the structure and the business planning. I find that that's like a very unique combination to be good at both.
Well, I'm doing both.
Superwoman.
It's like to be seen.
No, you are definitely. And so you launched this summer, and was it a year after the fact that you thought you would launch, or was it even later?
Later, actually, in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, later in the end.
Would you, I mean, this may be a hard question, knowing what you know now and going through what you went through,
No,
you wouldn't. Would you have gotten out of bed that morning to start?
That's a really good question. I would do things differently. But hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing because you're just trying to make the best decision you think you can in that moment. And it's only hindsight that will, gift you with that clarity afterwards. But would I, for sure. I mean, for sure. So
I always say to people or here as well, that starting a business is the biggest personal growth experience. What has been your experience with that? Like things that you... 100%. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's the most humbling, isolating experience I've ever had in my life, actually. Because when you're, I mean, the growth to just learn how to navigate rejection in terms of like, you know, perhaps not getting the response you want from people, learning how to navigate situations like the manufacturing problem we had, that all takes like characteristics that it takes for you to dig so deep into yourself. But every time you come through something like that, it then resets relatively what is stressful in life, relatively what is worth. I mean, so now there's a lot that doesn't stress me out because I've experienced stress more than I can ever imagine. So in terms of personal growth, it's transformative. Yeah. Okay. So what would you, let's say someone's sitting here and they have this, again, they have an idea, somewhat similar, a physical product. They want to crowdfund and they're, you know, bootstrapped in that way. What would be some things you would say to focus on first, or even a mindset shift or some kind of, I don't know if there's anything you could throw out there. Yeah. I mean, 100%. I think because I always say, and everyone says the idea is the easy part, and it really, really is. And the idea is the sexy part. It's really self-gratifying to think that you could have the next big idea, or you could have, you know, you could create something of your own. But that is all in your head. The reality is not sexy. And I was speaking to someone recently, Laura, the general manager for Umi Hard Kombucha. And she's another female who has taken something from idea to reality. And I said this to her, I said, you know, it's just not sexy. The reality of it isn't sexy. And there's spreadsheets, there's analysis, there's all of these kind of bits that people don't see behind the glossy Instagram and the products that you hold in your hand. And so number one, the mindset is so important, because you are going to sit with this thing every day, every night. And it sounds really negative and it sounds really scaremongery, but it is so true. Like you're going to be with this thing all the time. So you really need to like care about what you're doing, and you need to be ready for the highs and the lows. Yeah. Because it's, and when you're depending on so many other people, again, you know, manufacturing in this other country, and it's like all the pieces have to come together. Yeah. That is, I could see that that's incredibly stressful, because it's so many things are out of your control. Yeah. Right. And what kind of things really helped ground you through this time? Because I mean, this is a 3-year process, if not longer. Yeah. Actually. So what has been helpful for you to kind of in those moments of chaos, stress?
Yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga,
Okay.
my husband, because we are yin and yang in terms of personality types, and he just has a way of grounding me and stopping me working 24/7.
Yeah.
And then doing yoga twice a week, trying to find some kind of morning routine, these kind of things, walking the dog, like just moments that bring you back into the now. Definitely that's from a personal standpoint.
You're an avid reader. You're always reading something. And is there any books that stand out for you, or, that you can like pass on right now? Anyone that like top of mind that have helped you?
Oh yeah. I've got my Bibles for sure. So, it was funny in like when I was working in Geneva, I had that kind of feeling like I needed to do my own thing. And it was the fire was kind of burning then. And it was at that time I discovered Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week, and he's taught me everything about calculating like your target monthly income, talking about how we strive to work hard, but what are we working for?
Right.
And when you actually define what it is in your life that you want, actually the amount of money you need to execute that. Generally, we don't want helicopters and boats and fancy houses. We actually want we have quite attainable goals. So he taught me all about that, and which kind of got me into having a structured mindset when I thought about working independently again. A book called Free Range Humans by Marianne Cantwell. And that was good for taking me into, again, supporting Tim Ferriss, talking about what is your dream, like ideal day, all these kind of exercises. Yeah. And then since working on Palm and Pine, for sure, The Messy Middle by Scott Belsky. It's quite something, because he talks about the luxury of the shiny, sparkly start at the beginning. It's when everyone's at their most energetic, there's the most money to spend. It's still in that kind of exciting idea, becoming real kind of phase. And then once the money starts to run out, once the energy starts to dip, once the kind of response maybe wasn't what you thought in certain ways, etc., that's when the real work begins. And he talks about that, and he does it very well.
Do you see yourself sharing your knowledge in some form? Maybe it's a book or a course or something like that, because you've been through the entire process. And do you see yourself doing that in any way and helping other entrepreneurs?
I'd be interested to know if anyone listening would be interested in that, actually, because we've spoken about over coffee once. You kind of scribed my outline of the course that I can maybe do, and I have definitely thought about it for sure, through an online course that people could take, going through the process. And I probably would focus a lot on the kind of establishing, mindset prior to that, because that's definitely the biggest challenge that, you're going to face is, are you fit for it?
Right.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
No, that's the thing. Yeah. And yes, my mom would always say, business is not emotional. Keep the emotions out of business. I don't know how you do that when it's your own business, or in general, we're emotional beings that have feelings, and this is all very you're putting yourself out there. It's an extension of you, right? This brand. So what do you feel about that now?
I think I agree with your mom in the sense that when it comes to the business, it's transactional, and if you keep a transactional mindset, it keeps you in a rational, calm, negotiating kind of sterile kind of transactional mindset. And so when I'm in the business of doing the business, that's it. But then, getting myself up in the morning, in the middle of the night, that's when the emotions come in. And so it's like, so I think there's two sides to it. I think doing the business, for me, very much keep the emotions out of it. And I really appreciate when I can work with people who are able to kind of do that. We focus on the job in hand. But there always has to be room for emotion as well. There always has to be room for being human, and when you are creating something from yourself, I think previous projects, I'm doing this at the right time. I'm doing this at the right time, because with my bike project, for example, I would feel things a lot more. So if someone if I got a kind of shitty email, or can I swear?
People ask that. The title of the podcast has the word fuck in it. You're good.
Yeah, if I got like a shitty email or, a crappy, it would affect me. I'd be like, oh God, they hate me or I'm not doing a good job. But now I don't have any of that. I really don't have any of that at all, which is really important. If it's your first rodeo, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like, get the job done. It's not me. This is not me. This is not my heart and soul. But when the exhaustion comes into it, etc.,
Right. Then it feels much heavier.
Yeah.
As with anything. So, okay. We should wrap it up. We could keep chatting forever. I am honored now that we are collaborating and working together, because not only are you a great friend of mine, but you are so talented, so smart, business savvy. And as you just shared, I mean, you've been through a lot. You've had many different experiences and are now, using it in different ways and helping other people. So now you've built this beautiful brand and now going on to help other people with their businesses and their planning and strategy and really making something for people that can create the impact that they're looking to make with all your strategies. So B Scene Productions, what we do is remote video production for people all around the world. And
is your strength, your background,
which is my background and currently, just kind of packaged it a little bit differently. And then now you're coming in with your skill set to really help, again, the content live and have the impact. So where are you at now in general? So with your business, things are running smoothly for the most part. You're launching new products as well.
Yeah.
And now we're teaming up. So
yeah, I think having everything automated and streamlined was like my goal from the start with the business. And that, having the marketing background enabled me to like have all of my, a lot of it streamlined, automated, sorry. And so now that we've launched, I kind of had a moment of feeling like I had more capacity, and then we started talking and realized that we're kind of like the opposite skill set. You are incredible at business development, networking, speaking, and obviously all of the film production, direction, all of those skills. And then I come in with the kind of like the spreadsheets and the processes and the planning and strategy. So it's like really complementary. And I think even though there's a lot happening with Palm and Pine, I do have the luxury of more time now. There will be moments of kind of where it's more intense, but and it's going to be an ever evolving thing, so it doesn't feel right for it to be my sole focus. And furthermore, any revenue that the company makes goes back into the company,
right?
And our forthcoming charity partner, who will be announced soon.
Exciting.
And so so I don't want to take anything from it. So I had to actually start thinking about it from a personal, income perspective as well. So yeah.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
It's been the best.
Let's make some magic.
I know, exactly. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your story in such detail. I actually learned some new things about you. And I think the listeners will love it too, because just because you're heading in one direction does not mean you can't go on and create something incredible. You just got to have the mindset and the burning desire, right?
Yeah.
That's the key. So I will link your website so people can buy your product. And where can people find you online? Like your personal Instagram, for example? Yeah,
I mean, you can follow me. It's very much my personal life. But if you want to stay inside, it's sarah.muir.com, I think. But yeah, feel free we'd love to welcome you into Palm and Pine. So at Palm Pine Skincare, and then palmandpine.com, skincare.com. Yeah.
Awesome. And it's an amazing product. I can attest to it. 100% natural, no plastic. I'm definitely a stickler for natural products. And so
fragrance free as well. That was a big one because, you want to be able to protect your skin every day, but not smell like you're going to the beach. That was kind of the big thing for us. So
I'm actually wearing it right now. The zinc. Yeah. It's mainly for surfing, I would say, in the water, but yeah, it's a really nice product.
It's a really nice makeup base as well.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm wearing it too.
Are you? See, it's November and we're wearing it. So
yeah, exactly.
Year round.
Yeah.
Wear it every day.
Every day, wherever you play.
It's the tagline right there. So thank you so much again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It makes a big difference for visibility. And even better, share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode every other Wednesday. If you're interested in working together to elevate your online presence, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Instagram at whereiswillow. I also hang out on LinkedIn, Willow McDonough. Until then, cheers to carving your own fucking path. I love you.